Okay, so let's start. Mm, okay, hello everybody, and happy Logic Day. Thank you, organizers, for your invitation and the opportunity for speaking to the Brazilian audience and possibly some other international audience. Okay, the conference theme is on logic and religion, and my talking would be about some metaphysical challenge from set theory. Uh, well, time is short, and we already lost some minutes, and so excuse me if I'm going a little bit too fast, and I'm not elaborating on every point which was reflecting on, and these are very technical terms, philosophical terms, and you should be careful not to use them carelessly. And I try to provide some references for everybody to follow. And I guess you should search in the uh, literature to find more reference. Okay, Contour the Explorer of Heaven. Let's begin with the description of Cantor's personality. He was a religious person as well as a serious mathematician. These both are important as his contribution to the mathematics and theology both was rather profound, and both was originated from his personality and technical mathematical work. He discovered the different sides of infinities in 1891, but the point is that his motivation in discovering such infinities, which was not known but by the time, wasn't originally religious. It became religious afterward, but originally it was just understanding these different sides of infinity actually in Proclus' idea and theory were of different potentiality. So that these are not actually sizes, the difference is not actually in sizes, but in actual potentiality of the infinity, which becomes important in later set theoretic endeavor and modern mathematics. We come back to this point later. Okay, but anyway, he was the definitely the first person who proved that the mathematical provided the mathematical proof for the difference of the uh, infinite. Well, you would expect that maybe after this profound mathematical discovery, mathematicians will jump into praising the Cantor and his mathematical discovery, but it wasn't actually the case. the history as it happened. Uh, Cantor's discovery faced a serious backlash in mathematical society. Leopold Kronecker and several other prominent mathematicians of the time uh, who commented on this discovery and Cantor, such as, for example, Kronecker said that God created the natural numbers, all else all else is the work of math. Well, so these are artificial constructs in his view. Also, he said that I don't know what predominates in Cantor's theory, philosophy or theology, but I'm sure that there is no mathematics there. So or maybe he's questioning the technicality or the technical importance of the comfort work. Also, he called the names for Cantor and he called it scientific charlatan, renegade, or character of youth, so things like that. And finally, he prevented Cantor from, through his influence in the academia, prevented Cantor from seeking a backlash in position for any time people German mounted in the mathematical society, and he felt that well maybe it's not that good for his mathematical journal to publish Cantor's works, and he wrote to Cantor that, for example, on a paper on type theory of Cantor, he wrote to Cantor that please don't send such mathematical stuff to us anymore, which was another great disappointment to Cantor after denying him a position. So Cantor stayed in his Halle University and uh, tried to do his mathematical work. Of course, there was some support in the mathematical society, otherwise we could not hear of Cantor since the early 20th century. The most prominent supporter of Cantor was David Hilbert, uh, who described Cantor's theory as the finest product of mathematical genius and one of the supreme achievements of purely intellectual human activity. So you can see that how high is the Cantor's theory position in Hilbert's eye. So also he said, famously said, that no one shall expel us from the paradise that Cantor has created for us. You can see that how people are using some religious terms in their descriptions. These are mathematicians. None of them are actually religious people, but they are using a certain type of religious language to describe Cantor. So in the beginning, everybody had a sense of religious feeling about this theory. Also, he said that I'm going to. Also, he put Cantor's continuum conjecture, the conjecture that says that there is no order cardinal between the size of continuum, real numbers, and the size of the natural numbers. So he puts it on the first place in his list of famous 23 most important mathematical problems of 20th century. So it is really, he's really trying to promote Cantor's theory and set theory and theory of the infinity. Uh, so through his effort, I can say that much of what we know about Cantor is owed to Hilbert's support. Otherwise, it could be forgotten so easily. Okay, moving more quickly. Kant here enters Papio 13. He issues an encyclical, Aeterni Patris, in August 1879, 5 years before Cantor's major contribution in set theory. So In this memorandum, or in this doctrine, he says that let's revive the scholastic philosophy. Let's bring back St. Thomas. And also, he defines a kind of program. It's detailed, is very fine, and I'm not going to the motivations of this program, but the program was that the theologists should try to prove that science and theology are consistent. That's the time that science is going very fast, and the church felt somehow frustrated with these quick discoveries. Also, through this doctrine that was prevalent at the time in the Europe and among theologians, Cantor comes in contact with various theologians, including Constantine Gutberlit, Tilman Pesch, Thomas Esser, Joseph Hontheim, Ignatius Jailer, or Yeller, and he wrote something to Pop himself, but the interaction went didn't go that far with Pop himself. Okay, here the first mathematical challenge that occurs to the theologists of the time through Cantor's new theory of infinities. We know that Thomas Aquinas, and so apparently you brought up, you discovered a lot of infinities, but we all know of just one infinity, that's God. So isn't the abundance and unboundedness of infinity in your theory a threat to our understanding of God? So there are many infinities, and they are unbounded. There is no end. So Cantor tries to communicate with God Berlet, and tries to convince him that his theory is not only threat, not only is not a threat to God's nature, to the understanding of God's nature, but it's also an extension of that. And actually, he said that instead of diminishing the extent of God's nature and dominion, the transfinite numbers actually made it all the greater. So he explains this in several letters with several theologians of the time. Here, Cantor uses a distinction. Cantor breaks the numbers or the things in his theory of set theory to finite, transfinite, and absolute infinite. So here he makes a distinction between absolute infinite and transfinite, which is much of much importance. And in his view, the true infinite, these are quotes from his books and his letters. He says that the true infinite, which is in God, does not permit any determination whatsoever. So he's trying to tell us what he means by absolute infinite. He also adds that, well, the unique, completely individual unity in which everything exists, which encompasses everything, the absolute, which is beyond the grasp of human intellect, and thus not subject to mathematics, the unmeasurable, the utter simple, and the actual pure, which is called God by him. So he also adds that an infinitum, actually, that is not capable of any argumentation or subtraction, since it encompasses every possible perfection in concrete units. So these are some attributes of absolute in Cantor's view. Numbers is actually a sign of the existence of the absolute infinity, which is also could be traced back to uh, several Neoplatonistic views of the uh, philosophers, such as Platonist or uh, Proclus. Okay, but Cantor never mentions the ancient Neoplatonistic philosophers in his writing. Instead, he refers to another medieval, another Neoplatonistic philosopher, Nicholas Cusanus, who, in his seminal work on learned ignorance, describes something called maximum. What is maximum in Cusanus' uh, idea? The absolute infinity, he says. It's the absolute infinity. He says that the absolute infinity is all that may be positively asserted of God. So here he a little bit differs from the traditional Neoplatonistic view, so we can say something more about God. Uh, he also mentions that the actual infinity of God is not only constructed in terms of potency, but as an absolute maximum. Also, he says that maximum can't be perfected or increased any further. Maximum can also be paradoxical, and the law of contradiction doesn't apply to it. Here he provides an example, Cusanus, uh, about the whole maximum could be contradictory. From subjects and different parts, perfected any further in analogy to absolute in metaphysics. My actually infinite, or if you prefer, transfinite numbers are not absolute because although not finite, they are capable of enlargement. So the big shortcoming of transfinite numbers in Cantor's view was their uh, ability to become larger. So it was you know, uh, very bad attribute for that. So he also mentions that inconsistent, he brings up the idea of inconsistent multiplicities, which are coincidental with the proper classes in modern statutory terms, and indicate the uh, paradoxical nature of absolute. These inconsistencies of absolute are completely clear in Burali-Forty's paradox and also Russell's paradox, which I mentioned later. And you can see that these paradoxes arise if we assume that absolute is a set. If absolute is a set, it can lead you to a paradox. The same for the inconsistency of absolute from Russell's paradox. Uh, so here there is no time, but one should note that Russell's paradox, which actually resembles the classical omnipotence paradox against God, which basically says that in simple terms, if you define something too powerful or broad, it has no choice but to be inconsistent and paradoxical. So we arrive at the very important communication between Cantor and the cardinal. The cardinal Franklin, which is the most important communications of Cantor of all, and he presents his work to cardinal and tries to explain that, well, your neo-Thomasian approach in theology, in which he endorses Cantor's theory as a consistent theory with the accepted theology, uh, and this is his justification. First, the two concepts of absolute infinite and actual infinite in the created world or in the transfinitum are essentially different, so that in comparing the two, one must only describe the former as properly infinite, the latter as improperly and equivocally infinite. Uh, when conceived in this way, so far as I can see at present, there is no danger to the religious truth in your concept of the transfinite. So this made Cantor very happy, and he was proud of this endorsement. And he continued his work and mentioned this endorsement of Cardinal Franklin in many of his writings and letters to other theologians and also to mathematicians. Uh, and the story continues, and this is not something personal. I would like to briefly, before the time is over, I would like to briefly mention that Cantor's belief concept of absolute has a living influence in the Satori society, and it's through the strong axioms of infinity and large cardinals. What are these coming from? these are coming from the notion of that absolute or the mathematical universe, as Cantor described, is could not be describable, or it should encompass all possibilities of the existence of set. So it somehow should realize uh, all possibilities. And so if you have a property that is uh, sorry, if you have a property that holds for the entire universe, it should reflect on a lower level of existence of hierarchy of all sets in a lower part, and this leads you to a strong axiom of infinity and large cardinal. But this indescribability in the nature of set theoretical universe doesn't withhold set theories from continuing their attempts to adding new axioms, or even adding the entire absolute or the set of all sets or the universal set to the foundation, and conceiving some sort of alternative set theories and with universal sets, and also trying to explore the actual truths of mathematical universe through some sort of multiverse view or plural platonistic approach. And these are very detailed topics and extensive topics that I am not going to cover here. Okay, thanks for your attention, and happy World Logic Day to Brazil. If there's any question.
Thank you very much, Professor Daghighi, for this very interesting lecture. Yes, we are short of time because, but we started some 2 minutes later, so I think there is space for one short question, and the other questions can be also given in our chat. So please use it as well. So, is there anybody who would like to ask the question about this very inspiring topic, yeah, about this relationship between metaphysics and set theory?
So I guess the season has ended.
Nobody? Okay, so if anybody has a question, please use chat. And for now, we will start the second lecture. So thank you very much again, Professor Daghighi.